Hey, what's going on? This is Billy Newman, and thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Billy Newman Photo Podcast. You can check more out at billynewmanphoto.com. I'm a photographer. I'm based in the Northwest, and this is a little bit of the podcast that I'm recording, kind of covering some of the projects and the media stuff that I end up working on through my weeks here as a photographer. But Happy New Year to everybody. I think it's kind of cool that we're dropping into 2018. It's weird. Sort of wrapping up 2017, and I think it's been a couple weeks since I've done a podcast. I was up to the holidays, which I bet everybody was kind of up to for the last little bit, but the holidays was kind of an interesting time because I ended up sort of thinking a lot about what photographs are. I'm getting a little bit older now, and I think there's sort of like a change in the vision that I have of the way that I kind of think about photographs, or what is their purpose? Why are we making them? And in a big way, like maybe propagated by the Instagram culture or the sharing content creation culture that sort of seems to be out right now, especially for those photographers or artists. I think they feel the pressure to be content producers now, and that maybe is a little bit of a different job than the photographer or the real artist, that kind of a person. And so I've been trying to sort of think about that a little bit, and sort of take a look at the trends of Instagram, and are those my art? Is that what I need to pursue? And a lot of the time I sort of notice this, and even in my own images, this like super sharp, super crisp, everything has to be really perfect or really edited or really meaningful and dramatic in these images. And what I'm noticing a little bit, especially as I review my older images, is that the photographs that I'm really drawn to, they're the photographs that represent the truth more. They're the photographs that kind of have, I don't know what it is really, but they have a little bit more of an essence of reality. Or maybe it's reality, but it's also a little bit of grit to it too. Like, this really happened. It was magical. It was interesting. I really like that surrealism in the photographs that I take, and I have for a long time. But there's a little bit more. And I've always, I think, in a lot of stuff I've done, kind of pushed for the unreal. And some of the stuff that I'm kind of noticing the last couple of years, as I looked at like the photographs and how they changed, is sort of how that shifted from the unreal of landscapes or of the world, kind of trying to select things about landscapes, when they have unusual colors to them, or unusual dynamics or phenomena like clouds or weather or water or something like that makes it sort of feel like a different look or a different image than like what we'd see midday at noon if we looked at the same thing. So I think that's definitely still part of photography. But one thing I was noticing through the holidays and through reviewing a bunch of my old photographs was how much the stock value of a photograph goes up over time. Over 1 year, it's a bit. Over a few years, it's a bit more. But over a decade, you really get to see the change that happens in time. I get to see like relatives that were much younger in these photographs I took 15 years ago than they are now. And it seems like kind of an obvious point, or seems like something everyone should know. But really, there's a huge amount of value in the photographs because they capture something at the time that it was, and you get to hold on to that after their people or the moment or the event or the experience changes. I'm starting to notice as I'm getting older is that life does sort of change. It changes. And it's an obvious kind of point of fact that everybody's sort of known about for a long time. But in my naive sense, I've been so focused on photography or on image creation or on the product, making something that's kind of crisp and sharp and perfectly usable today. I don't know if I was thinking so clearly about how the nostalgia factor, or how the value of something, from a family, or just sort of a small moment that's captured that's more real, how that escalates in value over time. And like coming at these photos 15 years later, or even like 7 years later from some of the stuff that I had, it's really interesting to see like, wow, like I took a ton of photos of this type of topic, but I didn't take as many photographs that sort of represented my artistic experience of my life, or that humanity. I really want to try and show more of that in the photographs, the humanity, the kind of the way you feel about a photograph. And I think that's so much about what a photographer is there to do, is sort of be able to kind of pick and select which moments to capture and which ways you're going to be able to share that stuff in the future that's going to become more nostalgic, more meaningful, or just a way of kind of knowing, oh, this was part of my life. Wow, that's really cool. So I've been trying to think about some of those ideas around photography for the new year a little bit. But along with that, I've been going through the last like 15 years of photos in my big super catalog, that collection of Lightroom photos I made. That's kind of trying to pull in every phone photo, every phone video, every different camera I've had since 2002. I'm trying to get all those photos together, put them in there. I think it was like 120,000 images, something like that, which really isn't that many photos for someone that's been doing stuff for a long time. But I went through those and I tried to like punch those down to a lot of the selects, so a lot of the images that I kind of want to keep from. And I was trying to pull out a lot of good photos, but photos that were kind of irrelevant to me for this sort of future moving forward catalog of stuff. I want to get rid of like product photos or work photos that are hundreds and thousands of photos even, to kind of fill up space and memory in the catalog. I'll keep those definitely, but those will be backed up on another hard drive. But what's active to me, what's in my library currently, I want to be like the last, I think I've talked about this before, but like the last 2 years or so of photos in total, so I can get back to that library and edit any one of those raw files I have. But for stuff that's older than 2 years, like 2015 and before, I kind of want to pare those down a little bit so that I'm a little bit more specific and able to just get to those photos that were selects a little bit faster. And then especially for older stuff like pre 2010 or so, I want to really have those pared down to like the 100 photos I actually, I need to have around to get to for whatever kind of stuff I need to do. But it was really cool though, going through the old photos, and you just kind of do it in this pretty quick way. Like this is a 1-star, this is a 2-star kind of a thing. So you kind of punch through those pretty fast, and then I have another round to do, or I'm gonna try and punch it, from 1-star to 2-star. Those are going to be what I keep for a while, and then from that I'm going to try and render that down to select all the 3-star photos. That's kind of like I would pick this photo and sort of put it under review, and then my system at least is a little bit of the 4-star, 5-star zone. That's for this is going to be published, or this is going into the portfolio or as content sort of thing. So yeah, I'm going to try and push on that stuff a bit more and get some photographs sorted for the year. But it was really cool going through all of those old trips that we've done, all those different places that we've gone to. And of course I've seen, one thing I've noticed is, good Lord, how bad at Photoshop I was. And I want to say that I'm going to put a little blame, because I remember this happened at the time, but I want to put a little blame on how god-awful my laptop monitor was. Like a 2006, 2007, 2008 laptop monitor just had no color gamut against what we know now in like modern OLED or LED retina display monitors like Apple puts out, or like any kind of modern LED more color accurate monitor that we have now. But I was looking at it, and there's like it's just so muddy. There's so few colors that it can really represent. So you have to push things a little further out of gamut, or at least I did at the time, kind of not understanding what I was compensating to. So I look back at some of these photos and go, oh, I would never make it this yellow and green in a modern world. So it was kind of interesting whatever was going on or whatever I was thinking about at the time visually that sort of drew me to that place. But it's interesting to see like how that changes, how your aesthetics sort of change, and also a little bit of how your tools and calibration systems change, and sort of seeing like, wow, how off was that way back? So all stuff that you kind of learn and you get better at, and it's interesting, at least to the benefit, you get better over time. And like a decade later, I see changes in the kind of creative or the style that I would lay out just if I started working, out without actually having to try and implement a style, try and lay I'm going to make a photograph that's black and white and of events and personal or something, instead of trying to go out with a set intention of that, which you should or could in any set of photos. But if I just go out and am shooting what I am drawn to, the photographs that I capture and get, and the way that I kind of perceive what they look like and how I want to show them to people, that's all kind of changed and evolved over time. And it seems like my choices in that are better than they once were. But it was interesting too, just kind of seeing like, man, how many years and years and years did it take me taking photographs before any of these photographs really got good or got to the point where they were more than snapshots or more than just kind of a data collection. And I sort of thought of myself as an archivist for a long time, where like the job wasn't really to be a photographer, where it was editing to select like a moment and character and sort of like nuance between things that had like emotional pull to them. I didn't really understand that type of composition stuff. I just sort of understood the camera mechanically functioning as a light capturing tool. And so that was probably like the first 4 years of photography, was, sort of thinking about it like that, like I'm capturing data of a reality, and then that's going to be processed in to something else later. And it wasn't really for years until I understood like emotional vision, or having some way to kind of tie the way you feel to the way that you see something. And that was really interesting, kind of learning about how some of those things work. And it's still such a long road, and I still have no real experience in that by anybody that's really trained. Just self-taught little Billy out here in nowhere Willamette Valley. So that's some of the stuff about making selects for a new Lightroom catalog. The other deal that I got going, it's kind of a fun geeky one, but like kind of over the Christmas break and stuff, I've been eBaying around a lot, and I found like way back when I went to college, right, I ended up getting a laptop, which was fine, and it was cool. It was like a Windows PC. But I remember when I was in college back in like 07, 08, 09, 2010, 2011, it kind of changed over the course of those years. But I remember when I first got there, I really wanted that 13-inch black MacBook. Oh yeah, I guess it was just a MacBook. Yeah, you remember that one? They had like the white model and the black model MacBook for a while, these like 13-inch ones. And I always thought they were really sweet. Like I think they kind of came out right as I was getting out of high school, and they were a pretty solid machine back in the day for, a lot of, whatever it was for college stuff. But times have changed, times have gone on. And I was on eBay and I saw one for like $60. I remember them being $2,000, right? Like the black one was kind of the souped up one that you had to pay more for. And, in Apple ways, it was always a lot more. And that was already hundreds of dollars more than probably what I was going to end up paying, for any kind of laptop computer I'd get back in college. So I saw this thing pop up on eBay, and I was thinking, whoa, $60? I could swing $60 to get, this laptop that I'd wanted, that, in my memory, I kind of remember is $2,200. So it seemed like a screaming deal, even though really it's just time has elapsed. It's a decade later, and this is obsolete, antiquated computing equipment. But I bought this MacBook body. It shipped out to me. It's a working laptop. It really is nice. I remember a lot of those black MacBooks, they had this design flower, this little clip at the top of the screen would fold over, as you'd clamshell the laptop down to close it, and this little tab would sort of break the keyboard plastic that was below. Either this one was replaced or an older person had it and never really got into it like that, but it's super clean. Like it doesn't have that little greasy, wet puddle look on the thumb, what is that, like the mouse pad piece, and like none of that like wear and stuff on it. So it's a super fresh computer, but it was cool, but difficult. It's a little project thing, when I got it, I think it was running Leopard, which is the Mac operating system that it probably would have first shipped with back in like 2007, maybe is when it was around. That was before they switched over from PowerPC to, or I think as they were switching over, that was the last version that it was like cross-compatible between like the PowerPC and the Intel Macs. Is that right? And then they switched over to Snow Leopard. That was all Intel PC-based stuff. And so this computer was capable of it. It was Intel-based, and what I did is I wiped it and then set it up again with, Mac OS 10.7, which I think it went from like 10.4 to 10.7. That was the like OS 10 Lion. This is the thing I was learning about the Mac stuff, is that they kind of obsolete themselves after so many versions, right? Like I think it can't run Mountain Lion. That's why I didn't end up installing it. And it can't run Mavericks, which is why I didn't end up installing it. It's kind of interesting how I didn't realize that at first, but yeah, I guess it's set up so that it's supposed to go up to Lion and then stay there. And really in most ways, like I have it with me today, it works fine with Lion on it. But the other fun thing was, since it's kind of like a project computer to do some stuff, I really never worked with Unix the way that I need to, or really with Linux the way that I need to. And so I was trying to think, what if I do like a dual boot where I get everything working with Mac OS 10 Lion, and then I install some software to do a dual boot, and then I set up a distribution of Linux Mint, which is like a Linux distro. There's like Ubuntu. That's a really big kind of consumer popular one. There's this other one, Linux Mint, and I installed that with the program. Is the file manager, program manager, window manager? It's Cinnamon, right? I think there's a few different ones. There's like Debian, there's Cinnamon. maybe I'm all twisted. I think Debian's like a distro. I don't know anything about open source or Linux. It's way above me in most ways, really. But yeah, kind of for fun and to be up to a fun little project. I installed Linux Mint on this old laptop, and it really screams through it. Runs a lot like Windows 7 or something like that. It seems like pretty comparable in that way, and it's all free, and it's kind of cool. I was messing around with the Unix terminal in Linux Mint, and it was kind of interesting, like seeing some of the differences between like the Unix terminal work that you can do in Linux versus like what you can do on the Mac. And I was kind of noticing like the package installer system, like it was called like apt-get, where you can just type like apt-get and then like space, like the name of some program in the command line terminal, and it's like a package installer where it'll go out on the internet, it'll find the package where it is on a Git repository. I don't know how any of this stuff works, and then it pulls that down and installs the package on your computer, all within the command line, all from like typing a couple things. But it was just kind of a fun sort of like power user thing that I was trying to get into. I've also been trying to get into using Nano, which is like it's a word processor built into Terminal. I know you guys are really excited about this one. A word processor built into Terminal? Say what, Billy? It's a word processor that was built into Terminal way back, like when Unix was a file manager operating system, where you had like a big hard disk. You had to make a document, put it in a file, and then kind of search for or access that file later, and have it contain the records or contain the information. I think like Stephen King wrote a bunch of books in this word processor. Just on like a super old system. DOS computer, mainframe computer, something like that. Whatever, would have run a Unix operating system, just a command line screen back in the 80s or whatever it was, when you had a personal computer finally. But yeah, it's like a full screen app. It's got a black screen or black background, and it's just like the Notes app basically, but you do everything on the keyboard and you kind of save files out. But I've been trying to do that as like a distraction removal system. You pop into Unix. You do some of your stuff on the keyboard, on the command line. There's no visuals or like stuff that's popping up or getting in your way. And I don't know, it's just kind of been an interesting way to do a little bit of work stuff. But I'm trying to like go through and I journal a little bit. Like I write down like handwritten stuff. I write down a few things about like a photo or something that I'm working on, or one of these little ideas I'm trying to sort and draft, and I'll like write it out there a little bit. But then like while I'm at work, I'll throw open the laptop, I'll pop into Nano. And then I'll like end up writing out the text document. Like I'll draft it a little bit on the paper, and then I'll write it out. I'll type it up in Nano, and then I get the text document, on the operating system, and I can put that or throw it out to wherever I want to. It's probably silly and unnecessary, but it's been kind of a fun way to make use of Unix for something for a few days. So I don't know, kind of cool stuff. But yeah, messing around with some Unix, some Linux, some old MacBooks. Yeehaw, pretty fun. And make a new Lightroom catalog. So that and so much more in 2018. Thanks a lot for listening to this episode of the Billy Newman Photo Podcast. You can check out more of my stuff at Billy Newman on Instagram, or you can see this podcast, a few other podcasts, and other photos at billynewmanphoto.com. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye.